Hey, it's Bilal, and this is Deep Sea, the podcast about seeing the world more deeply. On my podcast show, I haven't really talked much about my new business, Hive. So on this podcast, I thought I'll talk more about it. Essentially, it's a research startup where we try to provide a platform for the best macro research that's out there. And when I say macro, this is all things related to markets and the economy. So it could be anything from, is China slowing down or not, to, is the dollar going to go up? Are credit markets going to falter or not? Now, rather than talking too much about the products of the business, I thought I'd talk more about what is a business. At a very simple level, a business is simply an organization that has a product that tries to get more revenue than costs, i.e., it tries to be profitable. But at a deeper level, an organization is really all about people. And this really hit home when I first started the business in June. I was alone, and it was an incredibly lonely affair. Throughout my work life, I've always been surrounded by people. I may not necessarily talk to them constantly all day at work, but I know they're around, and I have the option of interacting with them. And a thing I've really enjoyed about my job over the years has been interacting with diverse and interesting people, whether at work or on my travels. So something I decided early on was that I really wanted to work with other people. And it started in a very conventional way where I hired some interns who later became full-time workers. And then also, crucially, I found a partner as well. And that really lightened the load in terms of running a business. However, perhaps the most surprising way we've ended up expanding the network of people involved in Hive has been our invite-only WhatsApp group. And this really started out after I left my last bank, and I'd set up a WhatsApp group for people who were similarly minded as me, who wanted to make a transition from banking into some other venture. But once I set the business up, I then used this WhatsApp group to invite like-minded people to join the WhatsApp group where we could bounce ideas off the market itself. And in the months since, it's ended up growing to 50, 60, 70 smart people who have views on the market. And in this way, we've ended up having a very regular, often quite heated conversations about topics in markets. And this is something that would have happened quite naturally within a large bank, but it's hard to replicate when you're a startup. Through this WhatsApp group, we've been able to recreate that type of environment. So in effect, we've ended up with a virtual community of like-minded thinkers. On top of that, we've set up a weekly conference call where many of the people from that group end up talking about markets too. So although we're a small organization, we've ended up becoming a much larger organization through this informal structure of a chat room and regular calls. And this goes to tell you that organizations today don't have to follow the more rigid structures of old. You can create a network and an organization virtually very, very quickly. The underlying ingredients you need there is a level of trust where everybody knows each other and some rules of the road as well. And I think this is one of the advantages of setting up a business today compared to how I imagine it would have been setting up a business 30 or 50 years ago. Another aspect of the people side of the business is the ability to help others. And one of the things I've been very, very attuned to is to keep an eye out for people who have recently lost their jobs in banking. Not everybody will know, but the banking sector has really been struggling over the last 5 to 10 years. Partly it's regulation, which has removed lots of the profitability of banking, either through products that are no longer able to be sold, and also higher costs through more compliance and legal costs. Also, technology has really hurt banking. And then finally, the decline in global interest rates has really harmed the ability for banks to make money. So there are many, many people who are very experienced who have now lost their jobs. And so I've reached out to many of these people who have lost their jobs and told them, just get involved in Hive. They could either help me through their views on the world. As I said, many of these people are very experienced, or they could help organizationally. And in this way, while they are looking for jobs, they have the support of community. And I know that once you're out of work for a month or two, it can become quite a soul-destroying experience. And so the Hive community is something that can help these people as they transition from one career to another. And many of these people who have gone on to get a job end up continuing to help MacroHive in various ways, either on weekends or in evenings, which just goes to show how powerful this experience has been for them. Another aspect of my experience in the business is around how certain types of people get neglected in the job market. One I found is older people. So people in their 50s, 60s, or 70s tend to get completely ignored in the jobs market. They're viewed for some reason as people who are not as attractive to hire anymore. Yet from my perspective, these people are incredibly powerful additions to teams because they're very experienced, they know their stuff, whether it comes to market insights or from an organizational perspective, they have life experiences that can be incredibly invaluable to any organization. Another segment of the market that gets neglected are women who have decided to take prolonged career breaks to raise a family. So these women may be very accomplished women, but who make a decision to take 5 or even 10 years out to raise a young family. After a period of time, they may want to return into the workforce, but such women struggle often to find a way back into the workforce. Yet such women are incredibly talented, and we've been able to work with a few such women. And then the other segment of the market that gets neglected are people with non-standard background. So these are people who have convoluted paths in their background. They may be youngsters who got suspended at school, maybe autistic. These may be people who are not super slick in interviews, which for some reason ends up penalizing them. So this is another side of the labor market that one can focus on, which other more slower moving and more conservative organizations struggle to appreciate the talents that are there. And more fundamentally then, the philosophy here is to run a business that is people-centered rather than company-centered. And this means that people come first and family comes first. So if somebody needs to take time out for family reasons, that's absolutely fine. Because in the end, what happens in somebody's personal life will impact their work life. And equally, what happens in their work life will impact their personal life. And so one needs to be aware that we are all people. And in the long run, everybody will benefit with that type of mentality. Hopefully, as we grow, we'll be able to retain this philosophy. Now, if any listeners are interested in learning more about what we're doing at MacroHive or joining MacroHive in some capacity, then please let me know. You can get my contact details from my personal website, bilalhafiz.com, or you can go to my business website, macrohive.com. So with that, I'd just like to thank you for listening. I'll be back soon, so tune in then.